It's Connor Neil here from Vistage in Barcelona. Today speaking with Michael Canic, who has spoken to over 400 Vistage groups. And you can find out a lot about Michael in the links below. What I'm focused on in our conversation here is particularly for a speaker beginning to speak to Vistage groups. How to think about preparing yourself to really have an impact with the groups. Michael, I'd love to start straight in with what makes a great Vistage speaker.
Yes, I think, from my experience, I think the big thing is you have to have a mindset of, first of all, wanting to give, not just to get. And if you go into the mindset, I'm going to deliver as much high quality content as I can in this 3 hours, and engage the group around that content that's relevant to where they're at. I think that's really a key to all of it. So I give them a lot of tools, a lot of concepts, models, things that are going to be relevant to their business. And the more value I feel I can add, then everything else takes care of itself. So I think that first mindset is go into it not thinking, okay, what am I going to get out of this? But what can I give? And just delivering a very relevant, high value workshop over 3 hours.
And when you get an invite to a Vistage group, what are the questions you would have to Vistage, to the chair, to help you get prepared so that you're able to deliver your best session?
Right. So I always like to speak with the chair beforehand. And I think this is a best practice for chairs as well. Don't just have the speaker show up, but if you can have a brief conversation beforehand, and that might be 15 minutes. But what I like to ask, I like to find out about the personality of the group. What is their style? Are they more outgoing? Are they reserved? Do they ask questions? Will they challenge? Are they fun? If I can find out about the personality of the group, number one. Number two, I always like to ask about, are there key common challenges that they're faced with? Something unique to this group. What are they dealing with? What's hot on their agenda right now? So that gives me a pulse of the group, and that allows me to, tailor my comments to them. At the same time, it's always good for the chair to find out, what is it that I need as a speaker in terms of whether it's AV or setup, introduction. Do I like to call breaks, which I do, or can the chair call the break? So I really think that pre-meeting conversation between chair and speaker, 15 minutes is all it takes, but that's really a key component.
Mm-hmm. You've been part of Vistage for quite a few years now. How has Vistage affected your life?
Well, it's been tremendous. I mean, I've, started speaking with Vistage, around 15 years ago, I'm guessing now. And I can tell you that most of my consulting work, which is the main part of my business, comes directly or indirectly from a Vistage presentation I've given. So either directly where I appear at their time of need, or it's been a client I've gotten through Vistage that will refer me to somebody else. So it's had a tremendous impact, but not just in terms of getting business. It's also really kept me sharp as a thinker, because in that small format, I'm hearing their issues, what they're dealing with, the real world issues, day to day, the challenges. They're questioning my ideas. They're challenging. So I get to test, it's a real venue where I get to test my ideas as well. Now, it's ideas that I apply with my clients, but I think having that feedback keeps me sharp. The other benefit, of course, is that it keeps my speaking skills sharp as well, and allows me to hone, from presentation, from concepts to how I present to, all of everything to do with the art and craft of speaking. It helps keep me sharp with that as well. So then when I speak at conferences and larger groups, I've had a chance to refine those skills. And I guess the last thing I'd say is I just enjoy that small group format, being around bright, eager people who want to learn, who want to improve their businesses. And that's what's, Vistage is not just your average business person. It's somebody who really is ambitious and wants to grow. So just the excitement of the energy of being around people like that.
If you were to think about morning through till evening in the best possible Vistage group meeting where you come to speak, what would that look like?
Good. Well, first of all, I know, I'm clear on the location and the time, and I've got that dialed in. I typically stay, close to where I'm presenting. So we'll come in and meet for breakfast, and having a breakfast beforehand, just a continental breakfast, allows time for just some informal interaction. Really value that chance to get to know people, connect at a personal level, which is a great way to ease into the morning. After that, the chair will convene everybody. And what's very important for the chair is that, they run I'll say a tight ship, because the group will often follow the chair's lead in terms of structure and, organization. So the chair will bring the people in to get started on time. And then I will have provided the chair some introductory notes for me. The better chairs, of course, what they'll do is, in respect to the speaker, they will read that introduction as provided. One of the things I don't like as a speaker is when a chair says, well, here's Michael and he'll tell you about himself. Well, I think if I'm going to make the effort to come in, at least a proper introduction would be important. And then I like to pose a question to start. I watched a short video once of a speaker who said there are 3 effective ways to start a presentation. I think it was Connor Neal, as a matter of fact, and one of those being a question. So I typically start with a question to get people thinking about the session, tied, I should say, to a pre-meeting exercise I give them, which is simply 2 questions in advance. We send out a week before, just gets them thinking about what I'm going to be talking about. So I'll ask a question to start. I'll call a couple of breaks. We'll be interacting during the breaks. I will typically take some photos to put up on social media to help, promote Vistage and the chair and the group. And then at the end of it, we'll have a debrief, some Q&A, and then typically we'll have a lunch together, and it's a chance to elaborate on questions and things people have. And that's a great day. I will follow up afterwards with people. I do provide them with a list of tools, models that I've presented. They can download them with them. So I'm not pushing them to them. They can go to our website and download them. I let them know that. And then, then we add them when they do to our list of, our database. And that's how it works.
You've been quite successful, you said, of picking up many clients that have come through an initial connection through a Vistage group meeting. What are the dynamics of how you would finish your session and just let people know how to continue the relationship with you?
Right. So at the end of the session, I'll say that they'll have access to questionnaires, tools I provided, and then I pull up a slide that says, go to our website, and here's the password that's unique to Vistage, right? And if you enter this password, you get to download and use all those tools. There's no charge. So basically, it's an invitation to go to our website after that. The thought being, one, they'll download those tools and models, but secondly, on our website, they'll get the sense of what I do, how I operate. They'll see client testimonials. So, that will get them into our world.
And, if you had a friend who was thinking, how do I get into the Vistage network as a speaker? Murphy's Law of phone calls within phone calls. If you had a friend who was a speaker and over dinner, they were saying, hey, Michael, you've had a lot of success with Vistage. What can I do to get on the radar of Vistage?
Right. The first thing I'd say is, what is your compelling message? If you're going to get in front of a Vistage group, if you've got people who are business owners, CEOs, executives who are going to commit, 3 hours of their time each month to this, you need to be there with a compelling message. So it's got to be something that you have expertise on, that is something they need, is relevant to them. So that's the number one thing, because without a compelling message, they're going to be very impatient. It's not going to add value. So what is it you do that they need, that ties into your expertise, that you can then also provide things for them to take away? Because the takeaways are very important with Vistage groups. If you're just talking, hypothetically or theoretically or information, that's one thing. But you've got to give them things to take away, to apply, to use, to do. Again, whether that's questionnaires or models or processes or practices. So it's really got to be, it starts with a compelling message, but then it has to turn into what are the takeaways that they're going to value.
Yeah, I think to jump out of my role of curious questioner into president of Vistage here in Spain, I would say absolutely. I ask for a clear message, one sentence. What is it about? I ask 3 takeaways, 3 things that these people will take back to their business. I ask 3 ways you're going to get interaction with the group.
Yes.
Because I want to see that you're thinking about 3 hours of interactions in pairs, interaction in threes, interaction half and half, interaction full group. You're thinking about how they leverage each other's knowledge. You are not
Yes.
the only expert in the room.
Exactly.
There, one thing that I'd be interested, the dynamic of keeping the discussion on track. The chair's role is really a facilitator. When you're there as a speaker, how much discussion do you have with the chair over who's going to pull a conversation back on track if there's someone taking it way offline?
Right. My starting point and assumption is this is my session. I'm running it. If it gets off track, I'm bringing it back. So I don't rely or depend on the chair. And that's not being disrespectful to the chair. It's that, this is, if I'm the one in front, I should be, managing that. So I don't rely on the chair for that at all. And I encourage discussion that, will go off on a related tangent or something that's a real personal issue or hot button. And then I will at some point just interrupt and say, great topic. Maybe that's something you can process with the group in the afternoon. I want to make sure you get the full value of what I'm talking about. So let me come back to this. So there's a judgment call there, but I don't rely on the chair at all for that.
And if you were back 15 years ago and could speak to yourself before you gave the first Vistage session, what are some of the things that you know now that if you had known back then, you've been effective, your acceleration towards being successful as a Vistage speaker would have been even faster?
That's a great question. Give as much value, give as much content, because that's what they want, and that's how you build credibility. And whether or not you end up working with them or not, the fact is they'll take away a lot. They'll tell other people, and I found that just a general philosophy for business in general. The more value I can provide, without thinking, well, am I going to get fair return on this? But just provide tons of value. That in and of itself, I think resonates with people. So I would probably even going back to my younger self, I would say, just give a ton of stuff, just give a lot. And over time, I really try. I tell them, if you take away one thing from my presentation today, I will have failed, because I want you to take away 5 things, 10 things, right? I'm not here just to give you one thing in 3 hours. I want to give you a high return on time than that.
In fact, one of the things I really encourage speakers to think about and bring is at least a 1-page worksheet, so that that there's definite working happening. Yes. And to really understand that these are CEOs. Any decision that they take that will turn into action, when they go back to the office, they're going to pull someone into their room and hand them something.
Yes.
So for action to happen post a Vistage session, you need to make it as easy as possible for the individuals around the room to take back whatever decision they've made and
Yes.
hand it off to a leader in their organization.
Yes.
When you are contacted and when you work with a Vistage members organization post the group, is the relationship with that member, or how do other members of their organization start to come into contact with you?
Right. So the kind of work I do, which is strategic management, helping companies, instill this discipline of developing and executing strategy, typically involves the CEO and his or her top team. So it will be the CEO who brings me in, but then quite quickly I'm also working with the top team. So that's the group I'm working with throughout my engagement. It's always the CEO and his or her top team, and that just naturally comes about from the type of work I do.
And I had a really good question just at the top of my head there, but in the Murphy's Law of what I think here, where do you get your inspiration? Where do you go to refill your energy? You've given 450 odd Vistage sessions. I'm sure you speak, you consult. Where do you go? Who do you spend time with to reinvigorate and to fill you up with ideas and the passion?
Right, right. Good question. Well, I have a mastermind group that I belong to, much like a Vistage group. And if I wasn't traveling so much, I'd probably belong to a Vistage group. But I have a high travel, highly unpredictable schedule. But I love the concept. So I have a mastermind group that I meet with each month. That's one real source. And then also I do a lot of reading. So I read publications like Strategy in Business, would be one I quite like, online publications as well. So that's probably a big part of where I get my inspiration from reading and my mastermind group. And then frankly, also my clients. Just the challenges, learning how do you navigate through the unique circumstances of their business. I like to say every client is different, but every client is the same. And the real art is trying to determine what are the commonalities, but what are the uniquenesses, and then determining how to navigate through that. I find just the nature of my work very inspiring in consulting and in speaking with Vistage groups and dealing with the challenges that we talk through in our sessions.
And if you were to think of a Vistage members, what would be the best type of Vistage member in one of your sessions? If you think back over the sessions you've given, what are some of the members that really made it enjoyable and really efficient and powerful when you run a session?
Right. Number one would be engaged. Be 100% in. To come to these meetings, and you can tell with chairs who don't manage their groups as tightly, some of the members won't be as engaged, and I'm sure you've seen this. But when members are engaged, you're there. You've got 3 hours to soak up as much information as you can. So be inquisitive, be reflective, ask good questions. Those are the kinds of traits. So there's a level of commitment involved, which is something I look for my clients as well. I want people who are committed, who are who are ambitious, who are engaged. Those are the people who take away the most from things. Those are the people who apply the most, and those are the people who benefit the most.
I guess you have a unique view of Vistage. Of the 450, I don't know how many distinct groups you've been to. What are some of the signs, starting from the coffee in the morning, that tell you that this is a great group?
Right. And it starts with the chair. The chair really sets the tone for the group, no question. And the chairs that are organized, are disciplined, have an energy to them, they have the higher performing groups. The chairs that aren't as organized, aren't as disciplined, don't have that same energy, you can feel that pretty soon as well. And a chair has to be able to hold their members constructively accountable for attending, showing up on time, being back from breaks on time. Things of that sort. If a chair has the confidence and courage to hold their members constructively accountable, that starts to permeate and create the culture of the group. And so the chair really sets the tone for the culture of the group. That is the key thing.
I love that phrase, constructively accountable. You tell me more. Where did that come from? And what are some other things that you see great chairs do that show that they have this constructive accountability?
Right. Well, a big part of my talk on creating the right environment, for performance and execution does have to do with constructive accountability. And I say constructive because our nature is to think of it as a negative thing. It's uncomfortable, it's conflict, it's confrontation. But I think we have to reframe our thinking that it's constructive and that we're doing it to help people improve. help people improve, help performance improve, help our business improve. That's something we should want. And that's something people who are, ambitious, good people should want as well. The other thing it does, it shifts the mindset from you're a bad person or you did something wrong to let's talk about this and how do we get to, better performance. And so by having that constructive mindset, it produces a better result with the person, and it keeps us from wanting to avoid it so much. So that's why I talked about constructive accountability a lot.
And we've talked about good experiences with Vistage or good members. What are some of the most challenging things that have happened to you over these 15 years?
Challenging things. I've really only had one bad Vistage experience out of 400 and how many. And that was coming in, doing an afternoon session. And the chair says to me, he says, look, most of our guys, they've heard this kind of thing before. If you can keep it to an hour, hour and a half, that would be good, right? And at that point, well, why did you bring me in? If they've heard most of this stuff before, are they not getting value out of speakers, or are they? So that was, and he was disengaged. You could tell the members were, semi-engaged, semi-disengaged. It was just not a very productive session. So that's the one I can think of. Other than that is if, it doesn't go as well if the chair has not been organized enough to make sure the AV is set up, the room is set up, just the organizational, I'll say the meeting management functions, the pre-meeting management functions of the chair. If those aren't dialed in, then we're kind of scrambling around trying to get things organized. That doesn't set a good tone.
Yeah, I think the essence of good chairing is encourage stuff you like and stop stuff you don't like and keep doing it.
Yes.
And it's the small details that really matter.
Yes.
If you
exactly
say we're
right.
coming back from the coffee at 3 p.m., everyone's moving back into the room 2 minutes before and they're sat in their seats at 3 p.m.
Well, one of the exercises I do takes that into account. So I will, we take 2 breaks. And the first break will say, be back in 10 minutes. And sometimes people straggle in a little late, which is the plan. So then the second break, I say to them, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Is there anybody who can't be back in 10 minutes? Do you commit to being back in 10 minutes? Is 10 minutes a reasonable amount of time? Do you have a time mechanism to look for 10 minutes? And then when I do that, unsurprisingly, people are back within 10 minutes. And if somebody's not, we start the session. Because I don't want to punish those who are back on time and reward those who are late, because that in effect is the psychology of what you're doing.
And, their Vistage has, when you're a member, a chair, there's some clear, explicit rules about confidentiality.
Yes.
What expectations do you have and how explicit are you early on and at the end about confidentiality or any of the other explicit rules that we have as members and chairs in Vistage?
Right. So I don't deal with confidentiality at all. I mean, the chair has set that tone, and I know that's instilled in chairs. So the assumption coming in is that in this open forum, it is a confidential forum, and it's well instilled, certainly in the groups I've been in, that without that confidentiality, you can't have the openness. So I don't see that as part of my role, and I don't address that. That's a given when I walk into the room.
Good. So, Michael, I know you're just off the beach in Mexico, so I'm holding you from enjoying a relaxing time there. We sort of got 3 more minutes. What I'd love is, one, just to share any other things that come to mind for you that you'd like to share with potential Vistage speakers, chairs, or members. And also just let us know where we can find more information about you and the sessions you give to Vistage groups.
Great. Yeah, thank you. The number one thing for speakers, don't think of yourself as a speaker. Think of yourself as delivering a workshop. Because when you're thinking of yourself as a speaker, you're thinking of speaking at them. If you're delivering a workshop, you're engaging with them. So I think that is the number one thing. Think of yourself as delivering a workshop, not as giving a talk or a presentation. For chairs, it really is having that organization and preparation and making sure you are managing your groups. Don't let your groups manage you. You are managing your groups is the big thing, and that will be successful. And for members, make sure you're all in. Be 100% engaged, because the more engaged you are, the more you will get from Vistage, and you'll find it a very rewarding experience. And I can tell you, Connor, having been in groups where members have been members for 10, 15, even 20 years, they say it is the best thing they have ever done in business. Having that peer board of advisors with no power relationship, the only motive and incentive is to help each other succeed and grow, has been a powerful, powerful thing in their lives. So, as members, if you give like that, you are going to reap tremendous benefits. And as far as our business, our business is called Making Strategy Happen. Very intuitive, because that's what I do. Help ambition into strategy and strategy into reality. Our website, makingstrategyhappen.com, and you will find over 300 blog postings. There are models and tools you can download, all sorts of things. I give away tons of content. So if you're serious about strategy and execution, makingstrategyhappen.com.
Fantastic. Michael, a real pleasure to reconnect with you. I hope you and your wife will be traveling through Barcelona again soon. Enjoy your time there, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with the listeners.
It's been a great pleasure. Thanks so much, Connor. We'll look forward to coming back to Spain and visiting with you. Thanks a lot.